And they're like, it's my tender butthole. Scraping in the human anus generally don't mix. Welcome back to Privy. Privy is a podcast about bathrooms, recorded from my home bathroom. I'm your host, Hunter Hoover, and I love bathrooms. Thank you all for being here. Welcome back, and happy Privy summer. Today for Privy summer, one of the things that picks up in the heat of the sweltering summer as we sweat ourselves, crotch sweat it. That's kind of been the theme of this Privy summer, is crotch sweat. But a lot of folks head to the coast. And so for our podcast episode this time, we're actually heading out to the coast. Not really. I'm staying here in home bathroom. We can record on the coast another time. God knows, it'll happen. We're going to the coast, sort of. Anytime I go to the beach, doesn't matter what beach, doesn't matter if I've been to that beach 15 times, I swan to John, my daughter has to come back with just the fattest sack full of seashells. The girl loves seashells. And the sad thing is by the time we get home, she forgets about them. And then they sit in the bag in the garage. And then they like get weird. And I toss them. Confession time here at the top of the episode. Sorry, girl. Many times during summer, we have often spent time at the beach. But the other thing that happens in the summer that we've done here on the show is it's summer movies. It's the time to get on up and get on out to the movies. The AC is always cranked in there, and it's just a good time. The kids love it. This time, we're going to look at summer movies here on Privy, and we're also going to take a little trip to the beach. Rather than looking at a specific genre, which we've done in the past, and determining which movie has the best bathroom scene in that genre, we'll do some more of that in the future. We're going to check off a topic suggestion that has sat in my topic suggestions since the first year of this podcast existing. Today, we're blending the beach, the movies, and the bathroom. And in doing so, we're going to try and answer a 30-plus-year-old question. And something that has become a fan fascination since the movie's release in the 1990s. And that is, what is the deal with the 3 seashells in the bathroom in Demolition Man? These 3 seashells in Demolition Man remain a source of mystery and humor, with fan theories ranging from practical to the absolutely buck wild. To try to describe this situation is kind of difficult, and it's mostly theoretical. At the point of preparing this episode, and at this episode's release, I'm going to confess, I've not seen Demolition Man. I've seen enough clips in doing my research, and I've read enough synopsises and background information that I have a grasp about what's going on. But to make it clear, if you haven't seen Demolition Man, or if this is like, I love this movie, and you're like, well, Hoover doesn't know anything that he's talking about because he's never even seen it. This is a basic synopsis of the movie. So there is unrest and intensifying war crime happening in Los Angeles. I think the movie takes place originally in like 1992. And then these innocent victims, one of them's a cop named John Spartan, Sylvester Stallone, and another is this thug, Simon Phoenix, played by Wesley Snipes. They are sentenced to a state of frozen incarceration known as cryo prison. So they are frozen and their bodies are preserved, and then they're finally thawed out 36 years later, 40 years later, we'll just call it that. And Los Angeles is now this pacifist society. Yeah, right. Called San Angeles, but Phoenix is now again on the loose. And when you have a pacifist society with this crazy violent thug on the loose, Spartan, this previous cop, must team up with a future cop, Lenina, played by Sandra Bullock, to apprehend Simon Phoenix. So, in a pacifist society, you need like an old 40-year-old thought-out frozen cop to help you stop the new bad guy, because everybody's pacifists. We got to get somebody that's willing to get his hands dirty. So, the movie was made in the 90s. And one of the tasks of these like sci-fi movies sometimes, where they're set in like modern day, but like they're really set in the future, is it was supposed to be like a utopian, this is what life could be like 40 years down the line. Based on what I've seen. I guess they didn't get that just everybody would be addicted to phones and they would just be treating like mental illnesses, real or otherwise, with various coping mechanisms. And then honestly, like people would be constantly sucking on little vape sticks. Like they missed that in their research. I don't know how they couldn't see those things coming. And then they just spend money they don't have because they can. Because it makes me happy. Ours today is a different world from 1990. But it's also a different world from the one that they imagined when they made the movie. We're not far off from the date of the movie's events, about 5-6 years here. And so unless something huge, not sure. This man who was frozen in time, when he goes to use John Spartan, he frozen in time, now 40 years up in the future in San Angeles, he goes to use the bathroom. Now, one of the gags of the show is when he goes to use the bathroom, he is frustrated by the fact that this ancient dinosaur man, like, he doesn't know how to wipe his butt. There's not toilet paper to wipe with. And in the famous scene, he asks his like future cop partner, Sandra Bullock, Lenina, I think was her name, and some others in attendance, one of which is Rob Schneider, always a good time. And they get a big kick when he's like, well, where's the toilet paper? They get a big kick out of the fact that this ancient dinosaur idiot man is still using toilet paper to wipe his butt. And I'm here to say, this episode's being recorded in the year 2025 of our Lord. It's the future, and this is still the primary path forward. If you don't believe me, I brought some receipts. Now, it's all a big gag. That I'd say, unless something really, again, becomes terribly revolutionary in the next 5 years, I'm pretty sure we're still going to be doing pretty good with the toilet paper, old-fashioned butt paper. Like, in fact, I think we're going to see a lot of changes in the texture, and we've seen Charmin make some developments to the cut of the paper. I don't think toilet paper is going anywhere because the projected growth for toilet paper sales in the next few years is about an annual rate of over 4%. So yeah, unless the solution is real good, we're still going to be using toilet paper. And I'll be honest, there are some things which could replace toilet paper moving forward. I think a current contender is bidets. We've seen bidet sales annual growth rate of 6%, so it's a little more, but it's still not as widely used. Another possible contender is the flushable wipe. This also holds about a 4% annual growth rate. So it's not impossible that in the future, there's other or maybe better options that we wipe our stank crack with. But in the strange dystopian world of San Angeles, where somehow like Los Angeles has gotten better, when in our reality, folks are leaving that crap hole daily. Like, abandoned ship, California sucks. Sorry, if you're from California, I love you, but like, people are leaving because of your leadership. Like, a state is really as only good as its leadership, and the people of the state will tolerate the leadership. So, that's my opinion. And I know, I'm in Oregon. I know what I'm saying. Like, we ain't doing great here either. But they have some elaborate, like, in this dystopian world, folks are, like, in their thing, they have some elaborate system to wipe your butt that involves 3 seashells. This futuristic method of wiping presented by the film has become known as the three seashells kind of theory or debacle. I want to note, to my knowledge, and in all my searching, we never see these seashells. They're just mentioned as a passing gag. But nonetheless, in the future, people can't let something hold some sort of mystery. Because much like the gold briefcase in Pulp Fiction, Demolition Man's seashells have garnered a lot of attention and speculation. Here is a breakdown of the main fan theories. The first theory is the chopsticks and scraper theory. This theory is often cited, suggests that the first two shells you take and you kind of, and you get up in there and this is the butthole and you like scoop the poo out. And then the other one you come in and you scrape away, just scrape away the residue. Now, I got to admit, this sounds bad. Like, I don't like the notion of removing poo from my butthole via anything that involves anything resembling the term scraping. Imagine that when they came out with this, the toilet paper, they're like, yes, scrape your poo away. No, there's a reason why we teach kids to wipe and not scrape. It's because our buttholes are tender. As we learned from our deodorant stick episode where people were upset that apparently people put deodorant in their butt and they're like, it's my tender butthole. Scraping in the human anus generally don't mix. And so the next proposed theory is the futuristic bidet theory. This theory proposes that these three seashells are really what activate a multi-step cleaning process: water, spray, air, drying, and powder application. The proposal here is that they are three seashell-shaped buttons. Thing is, in the 1990s, when the Demolition Man was frozen, bidets existed. Like, they probably weren't as widely used, and they would not have been as normative. But this technically would have been known to him. Like, he would know what a bidet is. He knew what buttons were. For goodness sakes, Nintendo existed in the 1990s. You think he doesn't know about buttons? And so, while it's conceivable that these seashells do operate some button that would spray blast his beehole, I got one right here. Mine's a knob. Huh. Did someone say knob? We don't have a scene with Sylvester trying to interface with these. And my imagine is that when he talks about these three seashells, is that he picks them up. You don't pick up buttons. We just have this joke. And this is a reminder that that's what this was supposed to be. It's supposed to be a joke. It's a gag. But if he'd like reached for them and they wouldn't move, I think he would have tried to push them, even if it was just to push one to see if it was a button. Like, he's from the past, but he's not from like the Middle Ages. He's from the 90s. They had buttons. And so what is interesting is the past and the future, what they both have in kind of common is they rarely make buttons look like seashells. Like, I know it probably happens and it's like a stylistic thing, but on the whole, like, you make buttons look like buttons so you know how to push them. I don't think you make the buttons look like friggin' seashells, especially if it's to remove poo from your butt, because that's just stupid. So I think the button theory is bad and dumb. The next theory is, well, there are really two of them. And that is that there are these like metaphor or symbology theories that the seashells, the three seashells in Demolition Man, are just a metaphor for certain things. The first is that they stand as a metaphor for the loss of common sense. Now, I do believe that this could be one of the social commentaries that's going on in the film in this scene, because some believe the seashells highlight how these futuristic societies can maybe become overly reliant on technology and they lose practical skill. Like, they've wanted to be so highfalutin that, like, the common sense thing is get some toilet paper and wipe your butt. Instead, they're like, nah. We got to get like some sort of hard something and get back in there so that way we can solve this problem. Loss of common sense? Yeah, I think that is probably a good theory, but I don't think it tells us how you use them. Now, While I do think the future will continue to lose common sense if we don't try to find some, I'm not convinced that this was how you use them. No, they're still intended to be used as evidenced by the future characters in the story. Now, the second metaphor theory is that it's a metaphor for usability. This interpretation says that the seashells are a metaphor for the challenges of usability in product design, where they highlight more a person's ability to discover and learn and how efficiency are key. Now, this is stupid because it's essentially saying that they, as future people, were less worried about how usable something was and whether it sparked learning and innovation. And that's fine. Learning and innovation are good. But you know when I'm not super interested in exploring and innovating and playing in sandbox creative mode? It's when I've dropped a sloppy wet pie and the residue of my sloppy wet pie is clinging to my crack. I don't want to innovate then. I want solutions, not innovation. So for my money, those two metaphor theories, they don't hold a lot of water. In an interview, the lead actor of the movie, Sylvester Stallone, was asked about this theory, and he gave his perspective in what has been called the Sly Stallone theory. Sylvester Stallone, who starred in the film, has his theory about these seashells. He says that the first, employed as we discussed, but Stallone says you use two seashells in almost a chopstick method, dear Lord. Help us all. And then the others for scraping. Again, why scraping? So Stallone's the chopstick theory is essentially Sylvester Stallone's theory. Lead actor of the movie, he says, well, for my money, I'd take two of the seashells and it out and then scrape the rest. Not only do I have to be teased by these future people, but I'm also expected to learn how to use chopsticks in order to wipe my butt. That's sick. You're a bad person if that's what you're onto. Ultimately, the ambiguity of these seashells is part of their appeal, prompting continued discussion and humor in the Demolition Man fandom. The writer in the movie weighed in time to tell folks what the motivation for these seashells was and how they worked. He says he was trying to come up with a futuristic idea for bathrooms, and he wasn't having much luck. So he called his friend and fellow screenwriter, and they were commenting, and he made a comment, man, you've got a cool beach vibe in your bathroom. You got some seashells in your bathroom. And the idea struck in his brain, what if in the future they use seashells to wipe? And I want to know, the writer of the movie in this information does tell us where the idea comes from, but he doesn't answer the question, how are they used? And so, as a result, people have been left to theorize and speculate with little evidence. With that in mind, I'm going to take a crack at this. How were Demolition Man's 3 seashells used? And to look at this future toilet paper, I want to first look at the past. We have talked about the options humans have used for toilet paper in the past on this show. And it seems like in some isolated cases, we might have missed something here. It turns out there's a mention of a Greek term called pessoi or ostraka. Pessoi are these small pebbles, and ostraka are these broken fragments of pottery. In one Greek parable, in reference to relieving yourself, it is said that 3 pessoi would do the trick. Indeed, it seems there was a precedent for wiping with smooth stones, which we've noted before. But these ostraka, these broken fragments of pottery, man, broken fragments are sharp. I don't know about that. Something else we've discussed on the show in the patriotic Privy Pits episode was they found seashells in many of these privy pits, along with bits of cloth and scrap. And while some have posited this is just the refuse they toss in the pits as waste disposal, there's seashells in there. Seashells in the privy pits. Maybe they should have gone back in time, talked to folks back in the day how the rocks and seashells served their purpose. Because these generations, these early generations of people, had no problem figuring out how to use seashells to wipe their butt. And it seems that the solution is so obvious. It's scraping. But I want to note, I don't think it's scraping. Because when I think of scraping, I'm trying to find a good example here. When I think of scraping, if you have a seashell, it's kind of got this shape. When I think of scraping, I think of it like you're using it to kind of dig. Like you could use a seashell to dig up sand. That's what I think of when I think of scraping. Rather than scraping, I think they wiped with the seashells. They used the smooth backside and they wiped and it kind of scooped that poop away. And then they can wipe it off in the water, wipe it off. The earlier generations had no problem figuring out how to wipe with seashells. And not only that, it seems that these early generations of people and bathrooming enthusiasts grew tired of wiping with seashells. How do we know? Because we have toilet paper. Toilet paper was invented as the improvement on seashells. So what do we say of these three seashells? For my money, it's not a chopstick and scrape theory. It's a 3 wipes theory. And this is something that I think we can tote over into today. I'm on record saying 3 to 5 squares will do the trick. Here is the method for wiping in the 3 seashells. Pretend 3 seashells. You do not scrape the seashells like this. You wipe them along the curve. It's smoother, and you use 3. You wipe once to get the big chunks out, and then you set it. And then you take the second one, and you wipe it, and you set it. And then you take the third one for anything that you've missed, you run it through, and you set it. No scraping along the curve so it's not irritating your bunghole. And then you wash them off in the sink, and you put them back. Demo Man can't figure them out because it's the future. And he is used to technology that is an improvement on the 3 seashells. And so I think while the Sylvester Stallone's theory and the chopsticks and scrape theory are the closest, I think they neglect the fact that a seashell has 2 sides. And I believe that they intended the Demolition Man to use the backside of the seashell, where it is smoother, where the grain of the curve is not going to scrape your butthole. It will move along with it. For my money, these seashells are exactly what you'd think. Tools for wiping. Wiping, not scraping. He can't figure them out because he's used to better technology, toilet paper. He's actually more sophisticated on them. He's more sophisticated because he knows that toilet paper is what it is. And for whatever reason, they have regressed into wiping with seashells as prior to toilet paper's invention, humans once did. I know while that might be a bit of a buzzkill, this scene, which has captured people's attention with mystery for so long, it's really the simplest solution that is the best. With that in mind, this brings us to the end of another episode of Privy. Thank you so much for being here. We would love for you to check us out online, privy-cast.com. Go check us out there. You can follow us on social media. We're at Privycast. You can follow me. I'm at Alex7. If you have an episode suggestion, comment, concern, story to share, leave us an email, privycast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We actually had a listener submission. This was from prior guest on the show and friend of the show, Jude Dominy. Jude, thank you for writing in. He sends 2 versions, a short and a long. I'm going to read the long version. He says, "Let me set the scene. I'm sitting at my desktop computer with my daughter on my lap, and my wife starts freaking out in the middle of his bath, probably his son, because his son pooped and then proceeded to play. Little kids, dude. They're wild. Now, can you blame him? A log came out and is floating. It's probably pretty weird to see. He says his wife doesn't know what to do as he's grunting and making more logs like he's some factory worker with a deadline. He finishes his business and we get him out, dried off, and of course get left to deal with the tub. I start draining the tub, using a cup to scoop out what I can. If you haven't had to deal with poop in the bathtub before, when poop gets wet, it falls apart. That's facts. Thank you, Jude, for the reminder. When poop gets wet, it falls apart. So he's scooping pieces out of the toilet, and it's just breaking apart into more and more pieces. And get about half scooped up, and the tub finished draining. And we have one of those tubs where a waffle stomp doesn't cut it because the drain slits lower than the tub. I use the shower head to get what I can to flush down, but I'm left with no choice. No foot nor toe would do, and there's no other option. He takes his finger, and he waffle stomps with his finger the poo down into the drain to finish off with a rinse. He says, I never thought I'd have to do that, and I hope I never have to again. I feel your pain, Jude. I feel your pain. And yes, I do. Your question was, does this count as a waffle stomp? Technically, I believe yes. You forcibly crushed poo down a shower drain. Welcome to the Waffle Stomp Club, my friend. You've made it. Yes, little kids taking baths will do deeds and perform acts that you never thought you were going to have to deal with the results of before. And it's truly harrowing at times. Jude, thank you for writing in. If you have a story or anything else you'd like to share, like Jude, you can write in privycast@gmail.com. I will also note, we got another rating on the show left on Apple Podcasts. If you are able to, please leave us a rating and review. It helps the people find the show, but it also just helps people find it when they search, and it brings it up to higher in the searches. The more ratings the show has, leave us a rating. It takes like 10 seconds to go rate a show. And for every rating you leave, and leave us a written review, I will read them out here on the show. But every rating and review you leave, we'll donate $1 to the Wounded Warriors and Living Waters International as a reminder to keep pooping in the free world. This free world was not always free, and in pursuit of cleaner water for all, because not everybody has it. Go leave those ratings, reviews, share the show with a friend, post it on social media, share it out there. Word of mouth is huge. I'm trying to build this thing up a little bit. I got some fun stuff coming down the line. Last time you heard an episode of Ranked, I want to do more Ranked, but it does take time and it does cost to buy the stuff to rank. So help the show get out there. Tell a friend, share with a friend. As always, we want to thank Kevin MacLeod and Podington Bear for the use of their music this week. You can check them out in the description down below. This has been another episode of Privy. Thank you all for being here. Keep pooping in the free world. Don't find yourself in a mess of waffle stomping. The poo bricks part when get wet. Don't forget it. And now, as always, don't forget to flush.